Did you ever struggle with that after moving on, or were you just so, on a momentum high that you just kept going and kept, inspiring people like you do?
I went through a really dark period after.
Lavinia is the co-founder of Equinox, one of the largest fitness franchises in the world.
When we opened up, it was small, but mighty. We had Madonna coming in there, and John Kennedy Jr., and we had Steve Martin, and we had all the soap opera stars. I mean, it was just this gym that was so small, and, and all of these amazing people.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the More We Know podcast. My name is Mir, your host. The More We Know podcast is the world's mentorship platform. It's a top 5% podcast in the world focused on mentorship, where every single month we bring you on some of the world's top experts, top founders, and top leaders to provide you real life mentorship in your pocket. So whether it was the former CEO of Chipotle, the mayor of Miami, or the founder of Reebok, we try to bring you a real mentor in your pocket. When you're going to school, when you're at work, when you're at home, when you're at the gym, and you need a mentor and you need to find guidance in your life, we're here to provide you that. And I couldn't find a more fitting guest than today's guest, who is Lavinia Errico. Lavinia is the co-founder of Equinox, one of the largest fitness franchises in the world, and she is the visionary founder behind the Inside and Out movement and First Point Partners, which is a nationally acclaimed workplace, and she's a wellness entrepreneur and a speaker of essential truths on subjects such as value-driven entrepreneurship, the woman-led workplace, spiritual entrepreneurship, and joy in the journey. She has such a passion for movement and dance and full self-expression, and I've been following her on social media over the last year, and just spending some time on her Instagram page, you can see what she's about, which is positivity and happiness and motivating others. And, I can speak all day about her resume and the experiences of everything she's launched, everything she's mentored on, board seats she's had, launching one of the most legendary gyms of all time, but I wouldn't do it justice. I need to give it to Lavinia here. Lavinia, thank you so much for being our mentor today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here, Samir. And I love that mentorship in your pocket. I think that's so clever.
Yeah, well,
good brand.
Thank you so much. That's the whole goal. I mean, a lot of us don't have access to mentors or the network to get a mentor. And so when we're able to provide you a mentor in your pocket with amazing people like you, it's the best. And I know we've been working on this interview for quite some time. So I'm just so grateful for your time and for you being our mentor today.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I love helping young entrepreneurs. It's definitely a passion of mine, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'll kick us off then. So, I mean, obviously I went through a little bit of your background, but before we even go through your journey in your life and, what you've been up to after Equinox, I want to take it back for the audience that's listening in. I generally like to start these interviews learning about your childhood and what your parents did. And can you rewind who was Lavinia growing up as a child?
I had a great childhood. First of all, I'm one of 6 children. I have a twin brother, and then we had a brother 1 year younger. He was a single. Then we had 2 twin sisters the year after that, and another sister. So my mom had 5 kids in 2.5 years and 6 kids in 4 years. So we were a lot of energy, as she said. My mom said that we came out of her womb running. She said, I knew they were destined for something in the physical realm because my children just never stopped going. We were climbing, we were hopping, we were jumping, we were leaping. Never a dull moment in our house. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, my parents were really hard workers. My dad was in the deli business and, worked really hard. At one point, he had 7 delis in Manhattan. And my mom wasn't a stay-home mom too long. My mom was actually pretty amazing that before she got married, my mom got married later on in life, which would actually be at a time when everybody's getting married now. She got married at 32. But, in 1958, that was considered really ancient. But that was because she was a professional woman, which was also unheard of in 1958. She was right under a VP in a women's retail clothing line. So yeah, she was an amazing role model for us, Like I said, we grew up I worked a lot in my dad's store. I loved going in there. That's the truth. I loved going into the deli. First of all, one of my dad's stores was in delis was in Hell's Kitchen. And when I tell you that area then was so vibrant and so textured, and the people that would come in, it was just unbelievable. I loved looking at the women and the prostitutes, and just the energy that was in there was crazy. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, I loved it. I just really enjoyed my dad. His place would get really, really busy with tons of people. And I felt like I caught the loving people energy bug. I really looked forward to going in there when we were off of school and working. I loved working the cash register. I can't begin to tell you. Anyway, and then I was a dancer. I started dancing at 5 years old. And that really became my passion and my love. And everything kind of formed around dance for me. Movement, dance, I was in a group. I was in a dance troupe, I guess they would call that today. We performed. We were the professional group of our studio, and that was just where all my friends were. That became my life, we performed, and it was about camaraderie. It was about connection, like all the things that I love, and my brothers played sports. My sisters also danced and played sports. At one point, we all danced. I remember being in a dance recital, doing a show with my brothers, and it was definitely part of our childhood. Sports, dancing, movement. I mean, I remember when my dad put a universal gym in our basement, and everybody would come over and work out, and we had mats, and that was a big part of our childhood. That's how we connected, so it just made sense at one point that we would actually all be in the health and fitness industry together. When I look back and I look at what our childhood was like, we were also very fortunate that my mom was an amazing cook. She was really very vigilant about looking at, always reading what was on any of the labels. And she'd say, if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be eating it. So at a young age, we were very lucky that, we had a lot of fresh vegetables and just really good, healthy food. Once a week, she would buy something kind of in the junk realm. But once it was done, it was done. That was it. And with 6 kids, she'd probably really buy enough for a normal family of 2 kids. But it was like, okay, I'm going to give them a little treat. But when that's done, we're not replacing it. So there was definitely understanding and a respect for our bodies and what we put in our bodies. And I'm really appreciative that I grew up in that environment with the awareness of what you put in your mouth. So yeah, that was, and then we all went off to college. And that's where I started really getting into the fitness realm, because I wanted to join a gym. And the truth is, I couldn't really afford to join a gym when I was in college. So I said, well, I'll work there. And a friend took me to Jane Fonda. And I did a couple of Jane Fonda classes at the studio in Beverly Hills, because I was at USC. And I took a couple classes there. Because I had such a dance background, I could almost memorize the choreography. And then I started teaching that almost same exact class down at the student body, a little gym that was close to USC. And then I also we did a community classes in one of the areas, and people would just give a donation. And I'd walk in there with my little boom box and teach class. And that was just all part of my world. It was how I existed, how I'd like to make money, how I'd like to connect with people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I can't wait till we get into your Inside Out movement, because I know you're all about connecting with others and connecting with people. And it's for a lot of the audience that listen in, they are traditionally, typically Gen Zs, so people that are in their 24, 25, and figuring their life out, and maybe just graduated college. When you were at USC, outside of your family motivation and seeing the type of household you grew up in, was there anything specifically at school or clubs that also sort of inspired you to go that route? Because now a lot of people are in college trying to figure out, do I go down this entrepreneurship route, or do I go down a corporate route, or do I go down I don't know what route? Like what sort of thing, what really pushed you in that one direction, which was entrepreneurship, other than?
You know, first of all, Samir, we didn't even have that word when I was in college. Like, we didn't have the word entrepreneurship. It was for us, it was just that I needed to make some extra money. When my mom sent me away to college, it was like, we're going to pay your room and board, we're going to pay your college. And really, everything else I had to fend for myself. So if I wanted to have money to go to a movie and want to go out to eat, like, I had to figure out how to make that money on my own. There wasn't, I didn't have that kind of allowance. And the truth of it is, I'm so grateful today that I didn't, because that's really where, out of the need I got my hustle on. I went out and I started figuring out how to make some money. And so I really feel like, for me, it was just out of that need, like, wow, I'm going to teach, and I'm going to teach classes. And I remember days where I would teach 3 classes in a row, like one after another, because I had the capacity to do that. And also, in those days, like, minimum wage was, I don't know, something like $4, something like that. And I could teach 3 classes, at like $18 a class at the time. And I could make what was considered really good money, So I walk out of there with $50. That would be like, that would be a part-time job for a lot more hours. So I was so appreciative that that I had the capacity to do that. Yeah. So again, mine was really out of a need. That entrepreneurship came out of, and I do think that growing up in my dad's deli, spending so much time there working, that I wasn't afraid to go anywhere and work. Like, I could walk into a store and never have even been trained, and sort of get behind the counter and just start doing it, because when you grow up with customers and people and money and exchange, you could go anywhere. And that was also another gift that I really feel like I had, that I was just so comfortable getting behind a counter and going, okay, tell me how to do this. How much is this? Oh, okay, I got it. Don't worry. And I would just go. And that was very rare. You didn't really see that. I didn't see a lot of other young women my age with the ability to do that. And I think it was really because I was comfortable in those environments.
Right. And then, when you graduate college after that, what was your first job out of college, or did you continue doing classes?
So I was living in California,
Okay.
and I was a theater major. So I was dancing and I was doing theater. And like I said, I was hustling. I was cocktail waitressing. I was teaching. And then I even started an errand company. And that really came out of, my cousin was on Hill Street Blues. And I remember one time his assistant couldn't stay up at the house to, I don't remember if it was the dishwasher needed to be fixed or something. And he's like, would you be able to just stay at my house for a couple hours? Because the guy's coming between 8 and 12, and I'll pay you. And I was like, sure. And I'll stay there. And then, like, a few days later, one of the actors on Hill Street Blues needed that. And could you do that? And then before you know it, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing this all the time. Like, I think there's a business here. And I started this little company, Express Errand Service. And my tagline was, for those in LA that need 28 hours in a day. And I just hired a couple of my girlfriends that were also actresses that needed some extra money. And before I knew it, we had a nice little thing going on. And again, I didn't think of myself as a business person. I didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur. I just thought of myself as I need to make some extra money.
Right.
I need to, everything was just you figured it out. You saw an opportunity, you went, you figured it out. That's really what I feel like my early 20s was all about. I knew I wanted to stay in LA for a while. I wanted to try the acting thing, and you just needed to be creative. I thought of myself as more creative than being an entrepreneur. I mean, today I realize that's all entrepreneurship, but in those days, it didn't land for me in that way.
And then you mentioned that was your early 20s. One thing that I run into a lot when I see with listeners and myself personally is by the time we get to this age of 25, 26, the mid 20s, if you will, there's a lot of this sort of, one, imposter syndrome, and two, figuring out hang on a second, I just went through 4 years of university. I was supposed to have everything figured out. Now I'm all of a sudden getting closer to 30 than I am 20. And it's this feeling of anxiety, depression, and figuring out I don't have it figured out. Now, we know all the businesses that you've been involved in since you launched Equinox, and Equinox being the staple it is today. But I think what could be refreshing for the audience is when you were 25 and 26, did you feel like you had it all figured out?
No, absolutely not. I mean, no. And I definitely went through those moments of, I was afraid. I just remember feeling right before I was actually moving back, I was going to leave LA. And that was a big deal for me because I had wanted to be an actress since I was 10 years old. And it was just, I would get these little jobs here and there, dancing, a little bit of extra work, I get upgraded on extra work, but it wasn't happening. I wasn't getting the next thing. And I thought, no, I want my life. And then I was looking at people that were 40 years old in the acting business, and they were kind of still doing what I was just doing. And I'm thinking, that is not going to be me. I just don't want that. That's not my trajectory. But it was still hard, when I was leaving it, because I thought, wow, I'm giving up this childhood dream, this childhood dream to do this. But I knew in my gut that there was something else for me. I could feel it, I could literally feel it. I mean, and even with feeling it, it still took time. I went back to New York, and I was very fortunate that I had a high school friend that was working for Lancome. And I've always loved beauty. That was another definite love of mine. And she took me out with her a few days, hired me as a freelancer. She was a coordinator, I think, at the time. And then I would go with her. And again, I was one of those people that just got behind the counter at Lancome. I wasn't even trained. And I just got right in there and started selling. And I remember the first sale I had, it was at Lord & Taylor in New York City. And I had been a little familiar with the line because I was living with Judy and I was really familiar with the products. But again, I didn't have formal training. And I got behind there, and I think my first sale was something like $300. And I realized, okay, I could do this. And then I went through the training with them, and, I was there, and I just kept getting promoted and promoted. And that is one of the things that I would tell you I really feel very fortunate about, is that when you're with in a corporate situation, you get impeccable training. You really do. I feel with my little creative spirit, my little hustle spirit was great. But then going into Lancome and really getting immersed and getting trained properly on many, many levels, that for me, I feel was an amazing foundation. Such a good foundation. So I really always recommend young people. I know it's not cool to want to go into corporate America, but the training can be impeccable, really impeccable. So,
Yeah, I think.
go ahead.
No, no, sorry. I was saying I think that's an important point because just like you had university, the training there, it's also like the corporate training. I mean, you need training on both sides, right?
Exactly. And I really feel like I learned so much there about marketing and PR and how it all connects and the proper training and um, proper sales training. And we got the sales training. And yeah, there was just so much. And that was really invaluable for me. I don't know if what I would have brought to Equinox without that training, I don't know. Like that felt like there was so much there that was so rich that I learned there that I was able to then bring into Equinox when we started Equinox. So that for me, I like whenever I look at it Lancome ad, I look at it with reverence because I learned so much there, and I know I brought that to our company, you know. So yeah.
That's really powerful, and I think just inspiring to hear for someone that might be working a corporate job right now that doesn't necessarily love it, but they're gaining such valuable insight that can help them for their future business. So, you mentioned that this job really helped sort of instill the push into Equinox. To transition into Equinox for a bit, how old were you, one, when you launched Equinox, but two, how did like the launch even come about? Like the idea and
First
finding
of
a
all,
co-founder.
we myself and my brothers were all living in Manhattan at the time.
Okay.
And there was definitely this major dialogue about there's not a good gym. We were living on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. There was not a great gym there. There was just, we were on 69th and Broadway, and there was a bodybuilding gym down in the basement that was dirty and grungy. So we could go there. There was a great studio, just like an aerobic studio, and we would go there. But, at the time, LA was definitely ahead of New York in the fitness world. They had Sports Connection and Sports Club had just opened up, and we didn't have anything like that there. They had the Vertical Club, and that was kind of, I don't know, a lot of neon, and I don't know. It just wasn't. It didn't have the right. You didn't walk in there and be like, I want to sweat. I want to get in
Right.
great shape. It was just
Right.
kind of like you wanted to kind of people watch.
Yeah.
It just you felt like you were more at a nightclub than you were and the way you would even get hit on there was just not. It just didn't feel like the place you wanted to go and work out. So we kind of complained about it for a while, and we all just kept moving around. Like, we work out at the bodybuilding gym, and then I would run over. I joined Vertical Club, and I'd work out there a little. And I had a corporate membership at Health and Racket because of Lancome, but that was just not good. So that was kind of like this conversation we were having, and somebody just needs to open up something great. But we kind of just, made it work. And then my brothers were in construction at the time, and one of their vendors told them about a gym that he had that was out of business. And because my brothers were kind of like, these athletes, you would know that they worked out, and they were athletes in college. And he said, I have this gym. It's a woman's gym. It went out of business. Don't you want to be in the gym business? I mean, I don't know the exact dialogue, but all I know is the next thing I know, they're like, what about if we open this gym and it's empty and it's already been renovated, but it wasn't in the city. It was up in Westchester County. So we all went and looked at it, and we decided we were going to give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. But for the first 8 months, I still had at that time I had left Lancome, and I was with a fragrance company. And so I kept that job while we were, opening and doing the renovation and going back and forth. And at the time I had my territory was all the way up to Maine, Boston, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. So, yeah, that was tough, but there wasn't enough money to say we couldn't, it didn't warrant, we couldn't get any salaries out of it. But we opened that gym, and I would say about 8 months into opening it, it was like, okay, I can quit my job. And I stayed there full time. My brother still did construction. They would come up at night. And that was kind of what I would call, like, on Shark Tank, that was our proof of concept. Like, our first gym outside of, it wasn't an Equinox. That was kind of a proof of concept that we could make this thing work, right? Like, and that's what we saw. We saw that we could make it work. We could make money. We were figuring it out. Like, so we were figuring it out outside of Manhattan, which I think ultimately was a great thing. So for people who are thinking about a business, sometimes you want to pilot it where it isn't as visible, where your visibility, you can, make some mistakes, even though, to be honest, we really didn't make a lot of mistakes. We were very lucky that way. We figured it out. And and then after that, there was a prime location for where we lived on the Upper West Side, which we knew that we all wanted a gym there. And we had already had so many conversations. I feel like we already had so much marketing, and we already enrolled so many people in wanting a gym there, all of our friends and people we knew and so forth. So everybody was so ripe to have an amazing gym on the Upper West Side. And when we opened up, it was small. It was 7,000 square feet.
Wow.
7,000 square feet. It's a small gym.
Wow.
And but mighty, small and mighty, because like we were tiny, and we had Madonna coming in there, and we had, John Kennedy Jr., and we had Steve Martin, and we had all the soap opera stars. I mean, it was just this gym that was so small, and and all of these amazing people. And everybody was so happy because there was nothing that was stylish and clean and had great classes. And I mean, when I say we opened up and it was successful, but it was also because it was 7,000 square feet. Like, it wasn't like we opened up a 40,000 square foot place. We opened up small.
This is your first location?
That was our first location. It was 76 in Amsterdam. And then we were able to get more space. And we were able to renovate and go upstairs and add another level. I mean, that club since then has been taken down. But I mean, I think with all the renovations, at one point it was close to 30,000, 28,000 square feet after all the renovations on there. So, and then after that, it was just, we opened up really one club a year. Every year we opened up a club. Opened a club. And then we didn't, but what people don't realize is we didn't just open a club. I mean, that was great. It was great that we could get the club. But before you know it, you have all these businesses because you have your clubs. Then we had our juice bar. Then we had the store, which our sisters ran, and they did a stellar job. I mean, the stores on their own, really, they were called Energy Wear, and that was just such a solid business. And then we opened up a wellness center, and we opened up a spa, and we opened up a Medi Spa, and we put in physical therapy, and we did a whole vitamin line, and so it was so not just about opening more clubs. It was like we just opened up so many businesses within the clubs, So it was nonstop. Like, we did not stop to breathe for 10 years, more 12 years by the time that the 2 years before you open. You just go, and it was just nonstop. And I would say in the best way, in the best way. But you're not sleeping. When I see entrepreneurs, and I'm thinking to myself, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I mean, it isn't. Like, not everyone is made to go like that. Like, you've got to have a strong constitution. You've got to have Like I don't remember my brothers and I in those 12 years, any of us ever getting sick. Like when I hear, like seriously, like I don't remember any of us ever missing work, getting sick. Like you just didn't, I mean, you just went and you go. And I mean, I mean, even my baby, I had a baby on a Monday and the next Monday and I had a C-section. And the next Monday I was having literally, my marketing meeting at the apartment with
Wow.
6 people. And I'm not saying I'm proud of that. Like if I had to go back and do things, now I definitely, and the way I mentor young people, I don't encourage what I did by any means. However, it does take a lot. It doesn't, I mean, you give up a lot. You sacrifice a lot for your business. You're in it. You're in it. You're in it, yeah.
What I mean, it's such a powerful story, and it shows the reality. Because on the outside looking in, what I love about how transparent you are is someone might look at your background and be like, wow, as the co-founder of one of the most iconic brands in America, it just might be so perfect. But the reality is, there's all the ugliness as well behind it, of just examples you mentioned. It's not as
Yeah.
easy as making it. I mean, on Instagram we see the makeup, right? We see everything on the positive light, but we don't see the
Well, first of
challenges.
all, I'm not involved in that. I mean, I haven't been. I mean,
Yeah.
since we sold, I haven't been on Instagram with Equinox, so I can't speak to that. I can only speak to you that I do think when you're building a brand from the beginning, that can become an iconic brand. Like it takes something, like that was already there. That when we sold that level, I mean, I remember having focus meetings and they were bringing in people and they were like, I think they're owned by I think Equinox is owned by Nike. And my brothers and I are sitting there laughing because we're like, by Nike, like we're owned by Nike. Like
Yeah.
that's how big they already thought the brand was, because it did have that bigger than life already, before we sold. Yes, they blew it out and they did an amazing job. Amazing. I mean, like, yeah, the people that bought it and the CEO and what he did. And I mean, it's amazing. Like, like so many times I do these things and they always think you're going to like, now that you're gone, you think, poorly of the people that took your brand. I don't at all. Like to me, it's like, I mean, there are some things I would have done differently as feeling like the mama of a brand, like, as
Hmm.
my child. There were sometimes I felt like my child went a little rogue. However, um, that's just me being territorial to certain things. But overall, stellar. I mean, they just blew it up in the most amazing way, So I'm, yeah, I feel really grateful for that.
Yeah, and just talk about a journey. And I think there's so many little lessons on along the way. Like you were saying, you were doing one location a year. A lot of us now in our lives are figuring out we want to get X, Y, and Z, but we're not taking the measured steps or the micro goals to get towards those macro goals. To get where you guys get to. I guess on the transition for Equinox. What did you love most about being a founder, and on the contrary, what did you hate most about being a founder?
I mean, what I loved most was the ability to have a vision. Like if you had a vision, like for instance, my journey with I had a situation. I jumped out of bed one morning. I think we were open about a year and I landed flat on my face. And I went to the hospital, broke my cheek. They did, some testing. They were like, I think it's stress. And I'm thinking, how could I be stressed? I work out every day. I jump it out. I dance it out. I do the weights. Like, how could I, at that time, I thought that if you were fit, you were healthy. And that was the beginning of realizing that you can be incredibly fit, and I was incredibly fit, and still be out of balance. So that was my deep dive into, okay, what does it really mean to be healthy? I mean, healthy, not just fit. And through that deep dive of about 2 years, I realized you had to be spiritually fit, mentally fit, emotionally fit, and physically fit. Today, I would probably add financially fit, have community, other things I would add today to it, but that was what I said then. And that was the beginning of me creating the Wellness Center. And what I love with the question you said, what did I love about it? I loved always that my personal journey that I could create from there. You know, and there wasn't anybody that could say no. You know, you're the founder. You know, like nobody could say that's a really bad idea. You know, I mean, of course, my brothers and I would discuss it before, but for the most part, there wasn't anything I ever wanted to create that it was like, oh, I think that's a terrible idea, Lavinia. It was like, I don't know, we just had this camaraderie that when somebody had an idea, we really supported each other in it. You know, we supported it. Let's do it. Let's try. Like our thing was like, let's pilot it. Let's pilot it. We'll put some energy in. We'll figure out what club, what manager is going to say a hell yes to it. And then we'll pilot it at that club. And so that's what I loved, you know, whereas when you're working for somebody, like I remember having some, I thought, amazing ideas at Longcomb. And, you know, just to get through with everybody, by the time something would get, you know, green lighted, it would take a year. You know, you don't have that. As a founder, it's like you have an idea, you sit down, you figure out what it's going to cost to do it, what you need to get it done. And before you know it, like 60 days out, you're launching something. I mean, I love that as a founder. I love that especially like, I feel like I had these downloads, like when it came to wellness and fitness and things, I just like, I never, to this day still, the ideas just keep coming. I flow in that. You know, that's like my jam, right? That's my genius. Like that's that. So, that's what I love. I love that as a founder. I also love that I could put the most amazing team of people around me, you know, that I could really have that. I love team. I'm a team person. I love having people and then keeping them. And then you just keep creating from there and creating from there. And I love creating magic with people. You know, that just gets me so excited. So that's the other thing I love about being a founder. What I didn't love at the time being a founder is that, well, I mean, there were months where I couldn't cash a check.
Wow.
You know, like I just remember I was eating, we bartered everything. Like we would barter, you know, memberships for food at restaurants. And I would just be like, I just remember saying to my brother, I can't barter my rent. Like I have to pay my rent.
Yeah.
Like I need to, right, I'm like, so it was like, that's the part that made it really hard sometimes. And as a founder, it could be challenging. And not just when you couldn't pay yourself, but yeah, I mean, there weren't a lot of times where we couldn't pay our staff. That's for sure. In the beginning, like we always made it happen. But you know, there were the worry of like, all right, we've got to sell this amount of memberships. Like you were just every day you were on the firing line. Like as a founder, you're the one on that firing line, right? The other people behind you are like, but at the end of the day, you're there. Like if it's going down, you're going down. And sometimes that was really, that would cause a little bit of anxiety for me.
What are people
and the other part I would say, the other thing I would say is, as a founder, especially in the beginning, man, you've got to work harder than everybody. They have to see you. If you want them, it's like I always say, I can't tell you. I have to show you. You
Mm,
have to show people. Like it's like it's not telling, it's showing. And in those beginnings, when you're building that culture, when you're really building your culture,
hmm
as a founder, you have to eat, sleep, drink, be every moment you are that culture. Because as soon as you are out of that culture, woo, like everybody else is gonna dwindle. So you have to embody your culture, embody your culture. Um, yeah,
I really like the leading by example, but also the energy part, because when I had posted a few weeks ago about us doing an interview soon, I remember the biggest thing that kept coming up is like, can you ask her, how does it feel? How does it feel to be able to be a founder of something so flagship? And for me, I was really looking forward to this side where it's like, although it looks so pretty on the outside, the anxiety of having to make sure that people depended on you guys, right? Like their people's families, like their income was solely dependent on you guys, memberships, everything.
exactly.
It's not as easy as it seems, and I think that's the important thing. Like, people don't understand that there's an opportunity cost to everything you do.
Yes, yes.
So I feel like I appreciate you saying that. Now, in terms of, by the time you sold the business and you moved on, and I can't wait to talk about these new ventures you're working on. One thing I've found with a lot of very accomplished people like yourself is, it's interesting. The trend that I found over time is, sometimes I see that there's this sufferance with like imposter syndrome. Did you ever struggle with that after moving on, or were you just so on a momentum high that you just kept going and kept inspiring people like you do?
So I went through a really dark period after we sold
Really?
Equinox. Yes, I and I want you to know, like, I was really, really, I really wanted to sell. I mean, I just was like, I got to a point where I was tired. I was just really tired. It was just a lot. The marketing, the new class. I mean, it was just so much. And I just remember thinking, oh God, I just really, we have to sell. Um, I just felt, yeah, I felt it. I felt like the timing was right. And I was starting to lose. It had gotten like, so when things got for me where it was just like, where the meetings weren't becoming creative anymore. They weren't innovative. It was all about P&L and how many people were stealing towels, or I don't know, things like that. I thought like that's, I like to create. I like to keep creating, and the next program. I mean, even when we were selling, I was working on a program that if it didn't sell, I was like, we're going to launch this program. And it was a whole adventure travel program, adventure sports and adventure travel. And now that you're fit, what are you going to do with it? Like,
Hmm
and now it was like about getting people fit in the gym and then taking them out of the gym and doing like amazing, really cool stuff. Right.
hmm
So once that, I need that, like, I'm that person, just, but, yeah. So when we sold, I just thought, Samir, I thought every day I was going to be on that high. Cause I'm like a really happy person. Like I'm just the kind of, I never needed coffee in the morning to get me up. I never needed, like, I just jump out of bed and I'm ready to go. Like, I'm good. I'm just happy. I'm very fortunate that that's kind of my constitution. So now that I never had to worry about money again, now I just thought I was going to be, every day was going to feel like the 4th of July. Every day was going to feel like I was at, Six Flags on the best roller coaster of my life. Like, I thought it was just going to be that. And, we closed in December, the middle of December. We had to clean out our offices, do all that stuff, took, whatever, a little bit of time. And then it was Christmas and the holidays. And then we all went, I had a house at the time in Mexico, and we all went to Mexico. And I remember coming back on something like January 5th, and my partner at the time went to work, and my son, I'm taking my son to school, and we're at drop off, and I'm seeing, all the women there at drop off, and hey, and all of a sudden I'm walking out of the courtyard. We were in Manhattan, and all of a sudden it was like I got this weird feeling. I felt like my ears felt muffled. You know that feeling of like, and like I'm just hearing like, and everything closed in as I was walking out. And I'm like, I mean, like I leaned over, and I didn't know if I didn't know what was happening. I was like, am I having a heart attack? Am I having a stroke? Like, what's going on here? What's happening? And a girlfriend walked by, and she's like, are you okay with it? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I don't know. But I'm good. But what I realized was, as I was started to walk out, I realized I didn't know where I was going. Like where am I going? Like, what am I going to do the rest of my life? Like, all of a sudden I'm walking out on a Monday, 42 years old, and I have no idea. Like, every single day from the day I was born, I had somewhere to go. I had something to do. I had to go to school. I had to go, I had to go here. Had these hustles going, the work. And I'm walking out, and I'm going, like, I never thought of that moment, how I was going to feel. And that muffling, and that feeling, it stayed with me for a while. Like being lost. It was like I was having a post-traumatic stress of not knowing. And then I started, doing a little therapy and doing a little personal development work. And I had already been meditating and things like that. But I realized that my whole identity, my whole life was around the accolades of my successes. Like, that was my whole identity. It was always about my success as a student, my success as a dancer, my success as this. Oh, Lavinia's moving to California. Like it was always about things that I was doing. Like, that was how I felt valued. That's how I felt. And now I was like, what am I going to do? I went to the gym, I worked out, and walked home. And again, I was like in this fog. I was like in this muffled fog. And I couldn't tell anybody, because it was like, they had already reported it in New York Magazine how much money we made, and on the Post, and, who's like, oh, sorry, Lavinia, why don't you go on a shopping spree and shop? It was just like, I remember the only person I could really talk to about it was my mom. I said, Mom, I can't explain it, but and she's like, honey, it's a lot. It's been a lot. And even the whole sale, getting to the sale was a lot. Like, that last year was a lot, with adding on, the due diligence and the forensic accountants and the sale and then keeping the business going, and, just everything, like, and now it's nothing. It's like everything just stopped. All the wheels, like, you're going, stop. Whoa. So that was intense for me, very intense. And I realized, again, everything, if Equinox was enmeshed, my whole identity was enmeshed into Equinox. It was like there was no difference. It was a melding between me and my business, But I realized it was before that too. Even with Longcomb, I had this way of just melding things. Passionate. I would view it as I was so passionate, but it's like I didn't have this other identity, just my being identity. I didn't have that. It was all, and that's why I really work with young people. Actually, not young people. In the last couple of months, I've been working with people actually even closer to my own age, just really helping them unwind a lot of this stuff to really get more in touch with who they are, without not being a mom, not being a wife, not being, a philanthropist, like just being them, like just in being them, like no title, no mask, no title, just no, like that freedom to just just be me, and it took me a long time to get there. It took a while. And we had a 5-year non-compete. So I was getting offered to do a lot of really cool stuff. And some of the stuff I could have done, because I got offered to do one thing. It was a fitness chain in somewhere in, I don't remember, Venezuela or somewhere in Latin America. I could have done that. But like my inside, and probably the therapist at the time was like, no, you need to stay. You need to stay in this place. No, you can't get distracted. You don't need more distraction, Lavinia. This is what you need. You need to get really comfortable in that. So yeah, it was that deep journey that really took me to my next venture. I was telling a girlfriend the other day, like, dang, why am I the person that my breakdowns, that's what causes my breakthroughs. And my breakthroughs usually end up in money. And I'm like, but like the other day, I was just like, I don't want it to be like that anymore. Like, I want my manifestation to come in another way, not with a breakdown, creating the breakthrough. And then once I have the breakthrough, I'm like, well, other people need this too. Because that's how the wellness center was. And that's how a lot of the programming at Equinox was, because of, me falling flat on my face that day, and then having a realization, and then implementing all of the modalities that I was doing to have this bigger thing, And so that's just my trajectory and of how it goes, right?
Well, first of all, Lena, thank you so much for the transparency to the audience, and you embody the true definition of like being our mentor in our pocket, because you show the realities that come with it. So I really appreciate that. You talk about transitioning into these other ventures now, and helping people and working with people on things like we're talking about here live. And I feel like I've just had a session with you, just listening into the story myself, and there's things that resonated with me. What is it after Equinox? What were the transition? Like, what do you do now, and how do you work with the people that you work with in your business now and inside out?
So right after that, I moved out here, and before I knew it, I was starting to mentor. Usually I started mentoring women when they came back from college,
Mm-hmm.
because that seemed to be that, and again, it all happened just organically. It became just an organic thing where one person that I knew, my daughter is coming back from college. She's so lost. She doesn't know what she wants to do. Can she talk to you? Sure. Talked. And then the next thing the next thing I know, I'm mentoring her. And then from her, I got 2 other girls. And before you know it, I was doing this whole mentorship, and truly I loved it. It filled my heart. It was great. And then I was launching Inside Out, really looking at that. And I was getting ready. I was actually scheduled to do a very big launch. I had a whole team in New York City. And unfortunately, in 2015, my husband at the time was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So that I just had to put the brakes on it and say, guys, and we were literally getting ready to launch that in May. And that was April. So that was a big, moment of like, and I really, when I came back, which was a couple years later, I never did it in the big way that it was planned to do. I just said, you know what, I'm just going to do this. We put some time and energy. We're just going to do this in a very low key. We're not, before we were creating all this, we were going to be selling all this merchandise and all these supplements. And I had amazing nutritionists that were on that would literally be talking to people about, women, about, hormones and weight gain and just all the things women want to know, anti-aging, real wellness stuff. And then we downsized it, and we did, and then from that, I started to get invited to speak. I never said, oh, I want to be a speaker. But before you know it, I would be somewhere, I would go on a panel, people would ask me to speak at different events, and before you know it, I had a speaking agent. and I was out speaking. And it just happened. Most of the stuff since Equinox has really just happened very organically. But with that saying, it's happened organically, but I'm showing up. Like, I'm showing up in the best version of myself. I'm doing my work. I stay on point. Like, I literally walk the walk on my wellness. I don't slack. I'm very committed to my health and my well-being and helping others with that. So before you know it, you like I said, you have a speaking agent and you're speaking and you're doing and you're grooving and you're going and so it's really been that process. And then I meet all these young entrepreneurs because a lot of the events that I'm speaking at are entrepreneur events. And then I realized I started looking at amazing business plans. And not so amazing ones at times as well. But I just started realizing that there were some people, and it's usually the people first, product second, but I have to really like the product, but I have to really love the founder, and that I wanted to invest in. So before I knew it, I was like dabbling in that. And then I created First Point Partners with my son. And so we just started, creating a fund around that. And that's been amazing. And almost every brand that I've gotten involved in are brands where I can actually not just give money, but I can make a difference. Like, I can help them in the business part of it as well. So yeah, that has been going on. And then this past year, I went through another, 18 months. Like everybody else, I had some challenges during COVID. And what I realized at that point was, wow, at the end of the day, it's your women community for me that really holds the space and so is your support. And again, I had this breakdown, then I had this breakthrough. And then I realized we interviewed over 200 women from 72 to 88. And we asked them, if you could go back and talk to your 50-year-old self, what would you tell her to do differently? And after what we realized is the three things women said were to work out 3 times harder than she thinks, because just going up and down stairs and in and out cars and at a certain age takes something. I would tell her to cultivate more friendships with women, because a lot of these women became widowers in their 70s and they didn't have these friends and they're lonely. Like, they're lonely. And the other one was they wish they would have learned more about their finances. They wish they would have had financial literacy, because the husbands just kept saying, you're fine. You're going to be fine. Like, you're going to be fine. And some of them have this, fear they're going to outlive their money. So I looked at that and I looked at what I went through and I said, I'm going to create a platform around women community, like a real women community for the second act of life. And all the things that women really, really, where they want to connect. It's about authentic connections and supporting each other and really creating a safe place where people can really come and connect with each other and learn and share and move, because movement is life. And one thing I know, when you're dead, you're not going to move. But until then, I am going to inspire you to move, and not just moving like this. It's not about having a 6-pack and the best, tushy. No, we're moving for our life. We're moving for our energy. We're moving to expand our lungs. Like, we're moving for joy in our body. We're moving because when our cells move, they feel good. Like, it's coming from such a different place. And when we do it very intentionally. So it's a real mind-body connection. It's a celebration. It's an internal celebration. We are celebrating being a woman. We're changing the trajectory. We're changing the story about aging. I said, oh, baby, I'm not aging. I'm youthing. Every day I'm youthing, and it's like changing that. I know today I'm more alert. My brain is so much better than it was even 15 years ago. Like I feel stronger today than I did 15 years ago.
Hmm.
So, yeah, yeah, I'm excited. Like, and I came to this also like, listen, I'm going to live till I'm 100. Like, I'm so sure I can see it. I can visualize I'm going to be here till 100 minimum. And what am I going to do with the next 40 years of my life if I don't create something? Like something that's going to be impactful and help women and change their lives and make a difference. And when you make a difference in their lives, you make a difference in their families' lives. And when you make a difference in their families' lives, you make a difference in your community's lives. And when you make a difference in your community's lives, that's how we change the world.
Yes.
Like, that's how we change the world, right? So, like, I am so excited about this. And right now, I would say we pretty much have the name. It's called E3.
Okay.
And that stands for Energize, Exercise, Elevate.
Hmm.
And yeah, it will be a community. It's really a community. So I'm so excited about it. Yeah, it's like YPO meets movement meets connection meets women's circle. Like it's all of it. It has elements of it all. And most importantly, it will be a place where women um, can really connect and grow and be uplifted and feel good and be happy. And when they're sad, there'll be women to hold the space for them to be sad and help you with grief, help you with illness, help you get through it and get healthy, like help you accept. Like it's, the second half of life, you've got to be a warrior. You've got to be a warrior. You go through a lot, and you don't want the negative people around you. I always say, like, you want the people that are going to speak the truth, but speak it and uplift you, speak you and make you feel good, and not in a like, a poly, like, my son always calls me, Mommy, you're being poly positive. And I'm like, no, I'm not poly positive, but I can see it. I know that sometimes you got to go through this to get to the other side. You've got to go through it, but you have a choice when you're going through it. Am I going to be pessimistic and negative, or am I going to go through it and just be accepted and still see the good? Like the people that can be sitting in, in a really challenging situation and still see, oh my God, like I have water. Oh my God, like there's food on my table. Oh my God, like, and be able to look at all the good positive things. I don't care if that day it's just like, wow, my sheets are soft. We could always find something to connect to the good. And when we feel that, it changes our frequency. It changes our vibration. When you're thinking negative, you're like, but when you're like, you can find the good, you can find the peace, you can find that, like, it changes. We're all like, we're made of energy. Do you want to be a positive energy? Do you want your frequency? Because whatever frequency you're at, you're going to attract the same stuff. It's the law of attraction. I want to attract peacefulness, calmness, love, joy. Even when I'm going through like hard stuff, I still want to attract that. But if you allow yourself to go into that, the victim, I can't believe. And then every time you get on the phone with a girlfriend, you're just going over that same looping of that same story. Can you believe he did this? Oh, can you believe she did this? Like, it's just keeping you in a low vibration. This is the stuff I love teaching. This is the stuff I love people getting out of their way. It inspires me so much because people don't even realize it. They don't realize how they talk so negatively about things.
And I almost feel like even in that conclusion there, I heard you talking to myself even because I don't realize how often that even I can be inherently negative and how that energy spreads. And my follow-up question to that was going to be for the people that do go through that situation where God forbid it's a financial loss or a family loss or their spouse leaves them and the fear of being lonely, how do we make sure to change that frequency? Like how do we change the channel and make sure that we continue to have a positive frequency nonetheless?
Okay, so that's why I'm obsessed with movement, because movement really does change that. Like, go out and go for a walk. If you can just go out and be in nature, I mean, nature and movement is really like, it's a magic pill, like exercising and movement. And it doesn't have to be like, hardcore exercise. It just move your body, move. And then if you're in nature and you move it, it's like, it's unbelievable. Like, that's what I would really say. Leave your phone or put a song on that makes you happy. Like, sometimes if I'm having, like, I got off the phone and maybe I heard something I didn't want to hear and it was a little bit harsh, I have songs on my Spotify list that I know as
Mhm.
soon as I put them on, it's going to change my energy. I start
Mhm.
singing, and then when you're singing, you're using your voice, so you're moving energy in your chakras. Sometimes I'll just even do a little dance while I'm doing it. I
Mhm.
mean, my kitchen, I dance more in my kitchen than anybody I know. Like, because I'm doing it to move the energy, to move the energy. I do it again. It's intentional movement.
Mhm.
Clapping, clapping. Believe it or not, when you clap, that you ever watch babies, little babies, they clap
Yeah.
for no reason. They're like, and of course, parents will say, people will say, "Oh, look at them! They're clapping because they like it." Like, no, they do it because it feels good when you clap.
Right.
It feels good. I have this a couple breath things that I do. It's just 3 breaths. And I bend down. I do that like 20 times. And I'm telling you, you get high on your own supply.
Mm.
You do this breath. So I have my little tools, and this is what I teach people. I give people their toolbox. I fill their toolbox up so that their frequency can be a higher vibration. And it's not like, sometimes it's a little woo woo, but I try not to make it too woo woo
Sure.
because, and I do woo well. I love woo woo, but I just think a lot of the people that I work with, if I took them there too soon, they wouldn't like it. But I give them just these little things. And then what happens is they use them and then they're like, oh my God, I did those 20 breaths and I felt I was able to make dinner and
Mhm.
let that go. Because I'll say to them, like, there are certain conversations you need to give yourself 48 hours before you respond to that. Because if you don't, you're going to be reacting and it's going to
Mm.
be a reactionary. But if I don't give them something to do in those 48 hours, they're looping in their head. This is what I'm going to say. This is what they're going to like. So you got to keep them out of that looping. You got to keep them out of that. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I would say walk or move, put on music, get in nature, even sit outside. I mean, I know it's hard. I mean, you're in Chicago, you're right in the city, but
Yeah.
if you can, I would literally just go out. I mean,
Yeah.
and just walk and
Just
don't
move.
take your phone. Like,
Mm.
don't be walking like this. Be out there free. Move your arms a little. Sing, look at people and go, hi. Like, connect. Like, the other thing, to connect with other people is very important.
Mhm.
Very important. Let them think you're crazy. I mean, I'm sure half of the time I'm walking around, people like, she's crazy. And I'm like, I'm crazy because I'm alive. Like, I
Amen.
want to always feel alive. Like, I want to feel alive every day. Important to me to feel alive.
That is really inspiring and powerful, and I'm personally going to do that for myself. We're here for the listeners, but I'm going to take some of that action for myself. So that's super exciting. I appreciate that, and I'm going to post where people can join this coaching, mentoring. All that will be in our descriptions, and it sounds like
Okay.
we want to continue to stay inspired as you launch E3 and the movement that you have behind that. So we we look forward to that launch. That's going to be pretty phenomenal. Sort of in the conclusion, because I know we've taken up your time. It's so generous of you to be on as our mentor, and I know this has been in the making for over a year now. But I guess in conclusion, what takeaway is your? I always ask my guests, like, the 30 to 60-second commencement speech. What's your takeaway for the audience that's graduating today, the Gen Zs that are moving on with their life?
My takeaway would be, first of all, I would tell them to read The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. That would be one of my, it's a very easy read, and you will get so much out of it. And say yes. Put yourself out there. Put yourself out there. If there's a career, something you already know, identify someone, and don't say, I want to pick your brain. Say, how can I support you? How can I come and work with you, and just support you? I don't care if I have to, stuff envelopes, but I want to come and help support you. And when somebody says something like that to me, I take them on in a minute. Even if you have a full-time job and there's another person where, that you see that there are things that they're doing, just say, how can I support you? There's weekends. I mean, and I would say, really, again, put yourself out, put yourself out there, and, really try to be the best get your needs met. And the needs really are, you need to move, you need to sleep, you need to hydrate, you need to have good nutrition, and you need to have community. You need to have people. You need to belong to a community. So I would say, put yourself out there and really meet people. Find things that you can go to, because those are our 5 basic needs that we need. Just get those needs met, and
Well, that is amazing advice. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. This has been one of the best discussions I've had, because it's been different than just your traditional business advice. But I love that we dived into frequencies and energy and how important that is. That's a topic that we don't talk about enough. And thank you for the platform you're launching. That seems like a niche that is not even talked about that much. So the fact that you're able to,
thank you. I agree.
Yeah. So it needs to be talked about more.
I'm so passionate about it. And I was telling my financial team yesterday, I said, people sign up. They sign up for, so many different things, and they spend a lot of money. But what they don't realize is that I don't care if you're doing these different entrepreneur. If you're not grounded and embodied on who you are, and you are not at that frequency, and you don't know how to access that for yourself, you're never going to be the best version of yourself.
Right.
Ever. Right. You just can't. You're 1 minute away from something dropping and you're losing your cool, or fear's going to get in and you're going to be challenged with not feeling smart enough, or not feeling self-worth for something, or the shame taking over. Like, if you don't do this work, you really can't be at your full capacity. I mean, because for me, money isn't everything. Mm-hmm. I had the money. I didn't know who I was. Like, I look back now and I think, wow, if somebody would have taken me on this journey when I was 25, I probably, who knows, maybe Equinox would have been that much better, because it wouldn't have been so much just, it would have been a different vibration. Who knows? But so I love this. And I really, we'll talk again once we've launched it, and see if we can't invite your people on and offer something special for your community.
It would be an absolute honor, because thank you so much for doing this. And thank you for not being an entrepreneur that, after all the success you've had, you didn't just stop and retire and go live on an island. You're giving back, and you're launching more, and we can't wait to be a part of that. So thank you for being our mentor today. This was an
Thank
honor. This was, one of the best mentorship podcasts I've done. Guys, that is Lavinia Errico, who is the co-founder of Equinox, and not only the co-founder of one of the world's most recognized fitness brands, but she's done on and on other ventures. And now she's launching a platform for women that gave me chills just listening to it. It's my first time, full transparency, hearing about it today, right now. And I was just so inspired. And we are going to bring her back. So once this launches, we can talk about it more. So Lavinia, thank you so much for your time.